this demo, I'm painting a pier at sunrise. This actually came from a live webcam on the pier. I grabbed a screenshot one morning because I really liked the calm sky and the soft light just starting to kind of break through. What really drew me in also was the contrast, the peaceful atmosphere, and that bold, almost abstract shape of the pier stretching out into the water. I'll start with some light washes to capture the early morning mood, and then I'm going to build up the darker pier shapes to give it more structure. So let's get to it. First, I taped down this Fabriano 14 by 20, 140 pound cold press watercolor paper, then sketched in the major shapes. We're going to start with the sky, and I'm going to wet most of the paper in the sky area and then down into the water areas. I'm going to avoid the structure areas. The main concern at this point is the sky and then part of the water as well. Mix up a little bit of gray with some ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And then also we'll put a little bit of rose in there. It's a lot of rose right there. That's okay. Some yellow ochre. Paper's pretty wet right now, so I'm gonna let that sit for a minute, maybe tilt it up some. Get the water moving around. So I'm gonna try to maintain some of lighter tones here, some white, as well as some over here, and strips of blue and a little bit of gray up at the top, and then more warm with some of that rose towards the bottom. Maybe getting into a little bit of purple. It's just starting to matte back a little bit on the water. There's quite a bit of water in here still, so I just need to remember that. I don't want to flood it again. I have to be aware of how much water I've got on the paper as well as what I've got in the brush. Let's see what happens if I do that. Fairly good. Okay, so if I put some of this across here, a little bit here, and maybe some down in here. It's a little bit more wet here. You can see how it's running a little. That's fine though. Just making some interesting shapes. Maybe a little thicker here, or more paint here. And I want a little bit of the gray around here, and then soften this. Now I'm going to introduce some ultramarine blue. I'm working it around the gray that I put down and also leaving some space for the yellow ochre and rose color as well. All of this is going to blend together. It's pretty wet, and I can tilt the board and encourage that blending. And then as we come down closer, I'm going to put in some of this yellow ochre just to add another bit of atmosphere to it. Tilt this up a little bit. We're getting some nice blending there. Maybe it'll help it along a little bit. As long as it's wet here, we can play with it like that. Okay, now this area down here is the water. It's okay if I go over the bottom part here because that's actually going to get painted over pretty dark. The sky is pretty much dry. I can go in and start working on other edges here. Some of the same pigments that we used earlier in the sky, and we'll repeat that down below. There's some warm, darker tone, and then we can bring some of that over here and create some cooler stuff too. Try to bring it right up to the sky area, using the corner of the brush to do some cutting around. Fairly dark and thick here. The more contrast I can create, the more it will become a focal point. Now I'm using a 1 1/4 inch flat brush to put in the water. I'm using some of the same colors I used in the sky in the water just to show that reflection, that unity with the sky. I think it's important also to break some of that horizontal line there. I'm using a dry brush to soak up some of that paint because I need to have a way for the eye to get from the top to the bottom of the painting or vice versa. If it was a hard line straight across the horizon, then you really almost have two paintings. You have the sky and then you have the ocean and everything else. That blurring of that line just makes it a little bit more cohesive. To finish up this painting, I'm going to add some boats and the lights, the light poles with the lights, and then boats with masts, and that'll kind of tie the upper and the lower part together a little bit. Well, again, these are all darks. This area here too needs some work. It needs to more closely match the water that's behind, not be so bright. And we don't want anything too interesting on the edge of the painting anyway. So that's the finished painting. A quiet morning at the pier just as the light starts to come up. I really wanted to keep that calm atmosphere with the soft colors in the sky fading into the mist and the simple abstract shapes of the pier leading the eye out toward those boats. I think the reflections on the water help hold everything together without needing too much detail. It's always fun to see how a scene like this can come to life with just a few washes and some bold, confident darks. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, feel free to like or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next painting.